Welcome back, everyone, to Pure Picks, another edition. This week, we're gonna hit the main event of Yusuff versus Barboza. It's gonna be I think, a really fun event, fun main event between an Asian fighter and a up and comer trying to take his spot. I'm joined here by my man Gerard Top G. Um, 2 weeks ago, you won a unit. How did the previous event go for you in the previous Grant and Dawson there for Grant Dawson?
The Grant Dawson card, yeah, it was rough. It
Yeah.
was a travesty. There were a lot of tricks. We were supremely tricked on that card. No treats were taken.
Yeah, I mean,
uh, yeah, I thought Kanako got robbed, man. Yeah, it's tough.
yeah, it's
Yeah, and then
rough night.
Grant Dawson. Yeah, yeah, Grant
Um,
Dawson was a. I should have seen it coming, man.
you
He
know,
Grant Dawson was talking about three, four other fighters
you
going into that fight. I was like, is he really a lock? All right, I guess yeah, he's a lock. He's a lock, right? But we got tricked.
yeah, I mean that's just one of those things. A lesson that I learned from that event, and I didn't do that great either. I ended up losing like 2 units overall. I hit one of my like two bets, then the parlays just busted because I had Marotte in one of them, and then Dawson the other one. So, I think that
Mm,
just not a great night overall. But the one thing that I did learn from that event was, I think this game it's much easier and probably much more value in ROI to find a guy that you can fade, like a Ricky Glenn, right? Um,
mm,
Rather than ride a guy that say, hey, like Grant Dawson, because the thing that we probably didn't take into account um, overall was, hey, Grant Dawson is fighting a guy in Bobby Green who's a UFC vet, has a lot of wins on his record. Although he hasn't knocked anyone out yet, I mean, this just looking at who Grant Dawson has fought over the years, right? This was probably the most highly ranked guy that he's fought. So this was definitely. I'm pretty sure the UFC thought that Grant Dawson was going to win, but I don't think anybody foresaw that this guy's going to get knocked out in the 30 seconds with one of the first few
mm,
jabs or straights that he, took on the
yeah,
chin. So, I mean, that's just it's all bad. But yeah, I mean, did you learn any kind of lessons? That was probably the
mm.
one that I learned the most.
Yeah. If you think about it, I don't. I think it's hard to find a sparring partner for a Bobby Green
Hmm.
for Grant Dawson. It's kind of like that low hand style, and
Yep.
it's hard to find someone who's really skilled at that style. So yeah, I think it was an awkward matchup for him in terms of the striking, and we already knew Bobby Green would have the edge there. So, and he was a heavy favorite. That could have been an easy hedge, but
Yep.
yeah, we just a lot of people didn't think about hedging Bobby Green's skill gap in terms of striking and that awkward low hand style.
Yep. Exactly. And that also brings me to another point. I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, I think that, especially you have, let's say, like big time money on some of these parlays that make it till the end, right? Or maybe you have a lot of money riding on Grant Dawson. I mean, if let's say you hit like 10 leg parlay, you got nine of them, and Grant Dawson's your last one, maybe it's best just to midpoint that, right? Like, don't take the
Yeah.
zero there because the zero just hurts more knowing that you got the rest of the card right, and the last one that you didn't hit got knocked down 30 seconds. So I think it's always much better to midpoint a parlay rather than just risk it all. Um, and especially when the odds get to, like, I said this about Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland too, especially when it gets like minus, like plus 300, plus 400. That's an easy hedge right there. Just hedge it, take your money, take your wins, and go to the next week with your profit and do it all over again.
Mhm.
So that'll be the one thing that I would highly recommend everyone to do is hedge your parlays if it gets there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely. Cool. Well, let's get started to the next event. As I always say, the thing I love about the UFC is that there's always an event the next week. Very few times is when there's not an event. So I'm glad that we have something here as far as Yusuff Barboza to try to get back on track and move forward like we always do. So let's just get started. As far as the first fight on the card, this is going to be another WMMA fight, women's MMA fight, and also the one lesson that I personally learned throughout these last few weeks of that we've been recording and whatnot. I'm gonna say this all the time now. I don't play WMA. I just don't. Like you saw what happened to Marotte. Like like I
Yeah.
thought that was supposed to be a lock, and you just don't know, man. These chick fights are really close. I think that the judges, you just don't know which way they're looking at it, how they're scoring it, and
Mhm.
especially if it's like a really close fight where optics matter, right? I know Murata had that control time was, Vanessa OnlyFans was doing stuff. So I mean, whatever the judges saw, that kind of tickled their fancy, right? They saw something else that potentially some other people didn't, and it just created a close fight where the judges' scorecards were like kind of all over the place. Although that was like what 29-28 unanimous decision. That's how I know it was kind of rigged that one because they did a UD on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's but yeah, I don't play WMA. I'll be glad to break it down for you guys though, just so you guys kind of see what's going on. Ashley Yoder facing off against Emily Ducote. This is going to be I believe, first fight in the main on the prelims. We have Ashley Yoder. She's 8-8. Pretty much 500 on her record. She is 1-4 in her last five. She is 35 years old and 5'7", 69.5-inch reach right there, going up against Emily Ducote, 12-8. 3-2 in her last five, 29 years old. She's going to be the shorter fighter here, 5'2", so 5-inch height disadvantage for her. And she's going to be having a bad reach disadvantage as well, 63-inch reach. So she's going to be the shorter, more compact fighter here. Just looking at their stats. I mean, Emily's been fighting in the UFC for about 3 fights now, so we do have some good tape on her, have good stats on her. Um, she, mainly, I think that before she got in the UFC, she had a pretty decent grappling game. She had some subs in her career. She had some pretty decent takedowns as well. But throughout her UFC career so far, I've just seen a lot of defensive grappling, right? Because she had to face Loopy in that fight, and she did do a lot of defensive grappling there. But I haven't really seen too much offensive grappling. So I think that mainly for her, it's going to be more of like a stand-up fight. She's going to have a nice compact kind of style where she's going to try to, fight really close to her kind of chest and do a nice tight kickboxing. In the UFC, like I mentioned, there's no takedown so far, so I think that she's going to try to make this a stand-up fight, and I think that might be where she could, run into trouble against a person like Ashley Yoder. Ashley Yoder is a long range kind of fighter, and she's going to have the range here definitely in this fight. She's a longer fighter. Primarily, she's a grappler. Um, I don't know if she has the best way to get it to the ground just because she does have like a 30% takedown accuracy, which isn't the greatest, especially going up against Emily's 90% takedown defense. So that's something to keep in mind. Ashley, I believe, is also coming off of like a 2-year layoff. So a lot of variables here, right? I mean, the last time that Ashley fought was in July 2021. Um, she could have improved her skill since then, whether it be in grappling or stand up. I don't know. I doubt it. I think that she probably is, going to be the same kind of fighter, but that's the thing. I just don't know whether or not she's going to come back the same or not. I mean, that's what you get with a 2-year layoff, right? You could have either way. Um, I think that for Ashley, though, if she does get it to the ground, I think that she might have a good chance of perhaps trying to get a sub or maybe controlling Emily there. Because, I mean, I think she's just the much bigger fighter here. But Emily has showed a pretty decent takedown defense thus far. I mean, 90%. Um, And just to tell you the odds right here, I mean, Emily right now, she sits at a minus 350. So another juice line that we have on a WMMA fight. I don't like to see those juice lines, to be honest. She opened up at minus 600, by the way. So she opened at minus 600. Now it's been bet to minus 350. Um, just for me, I mean, I think that the pick is still going to be Emily just because she's been active a little bit more. She's been fighting a lot, even though she hasn't gotten like the like dubs all the time. She had that one dub against Jessica Penne, then got outclassed by Angela Hill, who's a pretty good striker in the division, ranked fighter, and then she lost to Loopy, obviously. I think the pick's still Emily though, because I don't know what Ashley Yoder is going to come back as, but like I say, I'm no play WMMA, so no money here for me. Maybe the over could be good though. I think the over 2.5 could be a decent parlay piece because both these tricks are pretty tough. Over 2.5 right now is minus 350. So I'll rather play the over 2.5 at minus 350 than play Emily Ducote at minus 350. That's just me though. So I could potentially see that as being a parlay piece because I do think this fight is going to go to decision. But other than that, pick is Emily, but no money here, maybe except for the over 2.5. Gerard, what do you think about this fight that we have here in the prelim right here?
I think that Ashley Yoder, she'll yeah, like you said, 2-year layoff. The one thing that I did see that she was having success in terms of striking, when she puts combinations together with that long range, she's able to do some damage, as I've seen her do multiple times against Jinyu Frey. Um, but in that fight, as well as the Angela Hill fight, she has trouble with that pressure boxing,
Hmm.
and and yeah, in that fight, it was unanimous decision 30-27 all around in both those fights, and she was just having trouble with that multiple times in her career. And she's facing a girl, Emily Ducati, who's basically that exact type of fighter who have that pressure boxing in your face, and she has good counter striking, and she's been active and against quality opponents. And Yoder's coming back on a 2-year layoff. Yeah, Ducati is probably gonna win this, but again, minus 350 women's MMA. Last time I did that, it was Kanako Murata,
Oh,
and
it's
I
fresh
am
moon right there.
gonna pass. That's that's a. Do you want to repeat the same thing you did last time that
No,
that burned you? Yeah,
no.
I'm gonna pass on this fight, but I'm at a low to medium confidence on Emily Ducati on this one, but it's a pass for me.
I'm glad to hear that, Gerard. I mean, you know me, man. I've been kind of preaching. Hey, I mean, I broke my I said that I wasn't gonna do it again, then I did it last week. So like that last like robbery or loss, whatever you want to call it, that kind of scarred me for a good amount right now. So I think I'm good on that. So yeah, we gotta live and learn here, but the thing is always improve. Don't repeat past mistakes, right? Just try to preserve that money. There's a lot more fights that are going to be on the card that are going to be, I think, deserving of your money and deserving of your play here. So yeah, I totally agree with you in that sense.
Mhm,
All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Oh, what do you think about the over, by the way? I just want to get your thoughts on it because I actually really like the over, just to let you know. Ashley
mhm.
Yoder, looked at her record, 8-8, never been finished. She's lost
Never been
all
finished.
losses or eight decisions. And since 2016 to 2021, since the last time she fought, it's all been decisions with three of them being splits. So she's a tough girl. And Emmy Ducote, same thing. She hasn't been finished in the UFC yet. So what do you think about the over 2.5 there as a parlay piece?
Over 2.5.
Hmm.
That can probably hit. That might be a good bet.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's what
the
I was
only thing I
thinking.
would say is I'm not sure um what Ashley Yoder has been training. She had 2 years to maybe mix something up and change something. So who knows? Maybe she has a new and profound submission game that we haven't seen. But you never know. She was here out 2 years, but I think over 2.5 is probably a good bet.
Definitely. Cool. Yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that. Awesome. Well, let's move on to the next fight here. Still on the prelims. This is going to be the second fight that we have on the prelim, and this was going to be actually a fight that was, well, for at least for one of the people, Chris Gutierrez. He was supposed to fight last week. But now that his opponent Montel Jackson pulled out, he's going to fight this week against Alatengheli. So fight is going to be Chris Gutierrez versus Alatengheli. Very, very interesting fight right here with some very interesting odds that opened and closed as we speak. This is going to be the fight in the 135-pound division. We have Chris Gutierrez, El Guapo. He is 19-4-2 and his pro record. He is 4-1 in his last five. Of course, with the 1L going against Pedro Munoz about 5 months ago or so. He's 32 years old, 5'9", 67-inch reach. He's going up against Alatengheli, the Mongolian Knight, 16-8-2. He is 2-1. Oh, actually 3-1-1 in his last five. He does have a draw in there in between 2 years ago. 31 years old, so pretty much the same age fighters. He is going to be a shorter fighter at 5'5", so he has a 4-inch height disadvantage. Really similar reach. I think about a half an inch reach difference, so not too crazy any way there. Um, as far as the stats here, striking stats, I mean, obviously they favor Chris Gutierrez a lot. I mean, he's a pretty good, I think, kickboxer. He's landing 4.75 strikes landed per minute, absorbing 2.76. So I really like to see that ratio, right? When I'm breaking down fighters, seems like he's a fighter that takes damage, but then also gives out more damage as well. So 58% striking accuracy compared to Alatengheli's 33%. So that's something to keep in mind. 64% defense, 61% defense for Alatengheli, so not too much difference there. But Alatengheli does have a negative striking differential, so that should tell you all you need to know. Chris is probably going to be the better striker here in that sense. Alatengheli, though, is going to be the better grappler. He does incorporate more takedowns. He's landing 1.78 takedowns every 15 minutes, 39% accuracy. Their takedown defense is about the same. Like I said, I mean, Chris Gutierrez is a good kickboxer, solid cardio and pace, great leg kicks. He definitely likes to get in a rhythm as a fighter, right? He loves to get in that flow state, as you will. If he doesn't get into that rhythm, I think that he does look a bit average because I don't know if he's the best, I would say, athlete on the roster. He does have some good technique. He is a little quick at times, but I don't think that he's the top of the top. You saw what Pedro Munoz did to him when he disrupted his rhythm with Pedro Munoz's power and his movement. I think that Chris Gutierrez was really affected by that. He did get dropped, but he came back and didn't quit. So that's something that I do like about Chris. I don't think he quits in the fight. Once again, decent takedown percentage. The takedown defense percentage is 74%. Alatengheli, though, when I did break down the tape that I watched from him, he does have some decent. Even though he has a negative striking differential, I think that he is a decent technical striker, especially in his last fight. Um, he can work in the grappling when he needs to. I think he has pretty decent power as well. But I think that the area where there's going to be a really big gap for both these guys is that I think that Chris is more fast than him as far as the speed and the quickness and the movement. I think that that's going to be something that's going to be too much of a gap, and I think Chris could overcome that just by staying on the outside and kind of jabbing this guy to death or leg kicking him to death, pretty much. Now, I think that Alatengheli is going to provide that pressure, so it's going to be a bit of a cat and mouse game, right? And whoever wins that game is probably going to win the fight. The odds are pretty crazy. I mean, when I broke down this fight last week and the odds weren't released yet, I thought that Chris was going to open up at like a minus 250 and then probably go towards like a minus 300, 350 or so. And I was like, hey, this is a potential parlay piece for Chris. I think that he could be a parlay piece, a parlay anchor, if you will, for some safety parlays. But the odds really were throwing me for a loop because when they opened, Chris was actually a plus 190 dog. And people instantly took that dog money. And then they bet him probably till like in even odds, pick 'em odds. And then since people have been just piling on Chris, and he's now minus 310, he got as high as like a minus 500 even maybe a couple of days ago. So that's pretty crazy on some books on Bet Online at least. I think he got it's minus 450. So he got as high as minus 450 on Bet Online there. Um, I think those odds are pretty crazy. Like I would not put Chris in a parlay at minus 400, 450. I think that's pretty wild, especially if you have someone who has the grappling upside of Alatengheli, right? Because I do think that if Alatengheli can get Chris down, I think he stands a pretty good chance of controlling the fight and kind of grinding Chris out. Because I think he does have pretty solid power and pressure. But I mean, minus 310, I think that's probably going to be the limit of putting Chris in a parlay. God, the odds just kind of threw me for a loop because before I thought that Chris was a safe piece, and now seeing him at like a plus 190, that kind of makes me reconsider because like am I seeing something different than what the bookies were seeing right when they set the odds? So they probably saw that Alatengheli was a great wrestler pressure person, and that really affected Chris Gutierrez's last fight with Pedro Munoz in terms of his pressure. But I don't know if he has that movement to really kind of throw Chris off. So the pick here is going to be Chris Gutierrez still. I'm a little iffy now on putting him in a parlay, so I'll hold off for now. I'll probably just wait until face off or weigh-ins for this fight. Maybe I'll try to find a way to attack this like via prop or something because I do think that if Chris wins, I'm leaning towards decision here, and I mean, but that's what literally I just checked the odds right now. Chris by points is minus 140, so I'm not really seeing another way. Maybe a knockout, but I think Alatengheli is pretty tough. So if I were to play this fight, I might just go Chris decision. Just pay a little bit of juice odds there, but other than that, I'll probably hold off and wait till face offs here. Gerard, what do you think about this second fight here that we have on the prelims?
Chris Gutierrez, I like his fighting style, but I mean, yeah, he's a skilled technical striker, and he has that twitchy, feinty style that's similar to Adesanya, just not on the same level. And this is where there's a problem. I think there's a blueprint now on how to fight that type of style.
Mhm.
We've seen that with Pedro Munoz and against Chris, and we also seen that with Sean Strickland against Adesanya, with that constant pressure, never backing off type of style, and that's how they never get into a flow because of that pressure. And in this case, Alatengheli, I think he has the tools to do that type of game on Chris, and he might find himself in a similar fight that he saw against Pedro Munoz if he can't get Alatengheli off of him throughout each round. Now, hey, Alatengheli, I think he does have pretty decent counter striking. I seen him catch guys with a lot of hooks and overhands, countering, and then even dropping guys like that. Um, and one thing to note here is that Alatengheli, he trains out the same gym as where Henry Cejudo trains,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of smart minds there that could probably game plan for the type of style that Chris um, has trouble with that style, kind of like Adesanya. Um, and yeah, this was yeah, seeing the odds here, I kind of like Haley, but I think just on skill alone and like ability, you have to go Chris Gutierrez. But I'm at a low confidence on Chris Gutierrez, and I think Alatengheli is actually a great uh, parlay hedge,
Mm,
and I like that plus odds on Alatengheli as a parlay hedge and a possible upset if he's able to use that game plan, that blueprint that we've seen Gutierrez have trouble with and Adesanya have trouble with. So yeah, upset potential.
got it. And just for the audience, when you mean parlay hedge, what do you mean by that? Do you mean putting Alatengheli
So
in a parlay itself, or yeah, could you explain that?
so if you have Chris Gutierrez in a parlay, you can have another exact same parlay, but instead of Chris, you have Alatengheli there with even lesser money if you want, because the reward is much greater with a plus 260 dog instead of a minus 310
Mm,
um, favorite in the same parlay. So you can get your money back or even more if you have another parlay with Alatengheli on the same one.
got it. Cool, yeah. And another thing that I just thought about right now is that this fight and how the odds played out is a perfect example of what I like to call an arbitrage play, right? Let's say that you got Chris Gutierrez at plus 190, and now he's, now Alatank is like what, a plus 260? If you got
Mhm.
Chris at plus 190, now you could just get Alatank at plus 260. Bam, you're guaranteed profit. So that's something that whenever most of the time it's when you see someone open as a dog and you know that there's no way they should be a dog like that. Like you might as well just put that bet right away and then wait for the odds to kind of come back to your favor. I did that. Last example that I did that with was when John Jones he opened up at like a plus 160. I was like, hell no, this is crazy. Like, I was like, what?
The
I was
goat.
like, dude, this is like Michael Jordan of UFC or MMA. Like, come on, that was disrespectful right there. So I saw that, played John Jones right away. And then I saw Cyril Gahn close as a dog. I didn't arbitrage that one though, but that was just an example that I did because I was like, man, this John Jones gonna. I thought John Jones was gonna beat that guy for sure. I was a little scared, but yeah, I mean, there are cases where you can get kind of plus sides for both, so that's something to always keep in mind. If you feel like something's off, something's a little fishy, it probably is. So go in there and dive deep into it, and you probably will get rewarded with free money at the end of the day. Um,
Hmm.
so the next fight that we have here, we're still in the prelims. This is gonna be another WMMA fight. I mean, all right, just because I mean, I think that there are gonna be a lot of these kind of fights in general. So we had a lot of tricks, right? In the last
Mhm.
card, man, I think there's gonna be some more tricks in this card because that's I'm looking at the rest of the card right now, and we got a lot of WMA fights. We got a lot of sketchy fights too. So for this event, I think the general theme maybe just keep your money, but we have it's about to get rough. It's about to get real rough right here. We have Irina Alekseeva versus Melissa Dixon. I like to just call her Russian Ronda, because that's her nickname, and she fights a little bit like Ronda Rousey too. She's 5-1. She is from Russia. She is 5-1 in her record, 4-1 her last five. I think she's coming off of that pretty good dub against Stephanie Egger with that knee bar submission there 5 months ago. That was her UFC debut, obviously. 33 years old, 5'8", 66-inch reach. She's going against Melissa No Mess Dixon, 5-0, 5-0 in her last five, obviously. She's from England, 32 years old. So these chicks are about the same age, about the same height as well. I don't think there's going to be much of a like physical attribute wise. They're probably pretty similar there. This is just another tough fight, I think, to break down. I mean, it's, you know, Irina is coming off a pretty good dub against Stephanie Egger. She seems like a pretty decent brawler that likes to get to clinch situations, and then she uses her judo throws or her sambo background to really get the takedowns and get it to the ground. and she really likes to go for those like submissions, right? Tough style fighter. I think she's nicknamed Russia Ronda for a reason. Um, I think that Melissa Dixon, the the thing that is probably going to get her in trouble in this fight is that she also likes to engage in that kind of dirty boxing clinch game, which is going to be the kind of game that Irina likes. So even though I think that Melissa Dixon, this is her UFC debut, so I haven't seen too much tape of her, but from the limited tape that I did see, it seems like she does have some pretty good skills on the feet and the ground, in my opinion. I think that she has pretty decent striking, but I don't know if she's like an overwhelming talent either way. Is she even better than Stephanie Egger? I'm not even sure about that. Like, I don't know. I don't know if she is better. So I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised that Melissa Dixon right now is the favorite. I think that she's like minus 150. She did open up as a plus 190 dog, so that's pretty interesting there. The bookmakers thought that Irina was the favorite, and then now she's been bet to a underdog there. So we have a flip of a line right there. Um, I I mean 5-0 UFC debut, women's MMA. I think I'm good on this fight too. I mean, if I were to play though, I'll do dog or pass. I'm fading Melissa Dixon here. I would, if I were to play, I would say Arena. But yeah, the mantra for me going forward is no play on WMMA. I'm good on this. Um, Even the over 2.5 is sketch. I mean, Arena, you saw what she did. She finished someone in her first fight. So I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think that's a safe thing to even go there. So I'm completely staying away from this. The pick here is Arena, but no play on WMA for me. What are your thoughts on this one, Gerard, between Melissa Dixon and Arena?
Irina, the Russian Ronda, she's game to stand and bang with you, and
Mm,
I think she's really confident in her chin, so she kind of throws caution to the wind in that aspect. She's a dog. She's willing to get in there, get after it, and I think she kind of has that tenacity, and I don't know if you call it the it thing, but she can pull out anything kind of out of nowhere in terms of submission or grappling. That's why they call her Russia Ronda, obviously. Um, yeah, I think Melissa Dixon, from what I've seen, I think she can get caught in some exchanges, and she probably has above average striking, and I've seen her ground and pound. Um, but that might be a dangerous position for her if she wants to go that route and grapple with a girl like Russian Ronda. Uh, yeah, I think yeah, I was also surprised. I saw Irina at plus 130, and I was like, maybe that's the play. But
mm.
I was like, let me not get tricked again.
The trap dogs, they're trapping
Let
dogs
me
now.
calm down and uh, keep my trap alert on and don't shut it off on women's MMA. So, I mean, I guess this, in a sense, could be like a dog or pass, but I'm just gonna for sure stick to pass. And the one thing I will say is I haven't looked at the odds, but one prop bet that might be a decent play to throw like way less than 1 unit is a Irina with for submission, possibly. So that might be the only play I might consider, but other than that, I'm passing.
Definitely, yeah. Arena by submission right now on Bet Online is plus 475. So yeah,
Mhm.
not too bad of odds there. Yeah, man, just looking at these odds though, I mean, I feel like they think that a finish is gonna come because anytime they hang out that like 2.5 and it's like under minus 200, man, I think they think that something bad's about to happen in this fight. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Yeah, I think I'm passing on this one too, man. Like, I'm not playing this. Next fight that we have on the main card, sorry, the prelims. Um, Probably a fight that I'll probably play. I like this one. So Terrence McKinney versus Brendan Marotte. This is going to be in the lightweight division. Obviously, T Rex, Terrence McKinney, 14-6. He's 2-3 in his last five. 29 years old, 5'10", 73.5 inch reach there. He's going up against Brandon the Kid Marotte, 8-1, 4-1 in his last five, 26 years old. I think that he has actually fought in featherweight before too, so yeah, he might be moving up in this fight. 5'10", 72-inch reach there. Um, I mean, Terrence McKinney, obviously, by now, I think a lot of people have probably seen him fight, right? Very exciting fighter. A lot of times he could be like first round or bust just because of he is a little chinny and his gas tank's a little sus, but with that sus gas tank and with that sus chin comes a lot of power and a lot of like athleticism and like raw just quickness, speed, powerful hands. I mean, I think he has pretty good jujitsu and wrestling as well. Like he's just an overall like one of the best hammers that I think we have in the UFC, right? But he's also potentially one of the worst nails as well. Um, so he looked great against his last fight against Mike Breenan, but I mean, Mike Breenan, I don't know if that guy's UFC caliber as well. I think that he's one of those guys that they just have on the roster just to kind of build someone up again. So I think he got a good win there, but not against the best competition. His fight against Nazim, I think he looked great. I mean, actually, unfortunately, I had some bets on him in that Nazim fight. He looked great in the beginning, and then he kind of just ran himself into another horrible L. It just like it was a horrible L. He got caught. Like I think his arm got trapped under him or something like that. So it just looked bad. But I mean, I think this is a favorable matchup for him. I mean, he was preparing and training for a tough matchup like against a durable and dangerous Chris Duncan. So Brendan is actually stepping in for Chris Duncan. So, I think that Terrence was preparing for a much tougher opponent here. On the limited tape that I did have of Brendan, I mean, I think that he's one of those dudes that is a striker that likes to give one and take one, right? I mean, he likes to strike and then he likes to take damage and use his chin. Honestly, I haven't really been too impressed by his, limited tape. I think that he does have some decent power, but he's one of those guys that when he does get hit, though, I think that he doesn't weather those storms too well because he does kind of like put up his guard and try to shell up, especially if tries to get to the fence area. And against a guy like Terrence McKinney, who is a hunter and a predator, especially in that first round. I mean, you saw what happened against Mike Breeden, right? I mean, Terrence McKinney just hunted that dude down and just put him out pretty much. So I see the same thing probably happening in this fight. I mean, as long as Terrence McKinney can maintain that pace for the first round at least and hunt Brendan down, I think this is a Terrence McKinney steamroll. They were probably honestly feeding Terrence McKinney to Chris Duncan to build up Chris Duncan, but since Chris Duncan pulled out, they're probably going to give Terrence McKinney a easy dub and try to feed him to his next fight. So right now, I think Terrence McKinney is for me, possible parlay piece. I'll definitely play him. I'll wait till the face offs and weigh-ins or whatever, but I think that he's a pretty good bet right there for a parlay piece. I mean, his odds are a little juiced. It's he opened up at -500, now it's a -525, so not too much action there, but I think that's about right. I mean, I don't see what this UFC debut guy has for Terrence McKinney. So pick here is Terrence McKinney, possible parlay piece, and I'll be awaiting the face-offs just to confirm my decision. But yeah, Gerard, what do you think about this fight right here?
I think Terrence McKinney, he should win. Um, and he's had a trend of steamrolling a lot of these opponents. But I think we have seen him lose to some prospects, some new faces in the UFC, and even debut people before. But again, like there hasn't been too much tape on Brendan, and he's from what I've seen, I wasn't crazily impressed from his tape. Maybe he has decent striking, but um, I wasn't really too impressed. One thing to note is that he does train out the same gym as Rob Font and Calvin Cater. So who knows? Maybe he's one of the better fighters in that gym. But yeah, it's probably Terrence McKinney. He's probably parlayable, but I'm probably just gonna pass because the odds are just so juiced, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
don't blame you.
yeah, I was thinking of, is it 2.5 or 1.5 over under?
They don't even have a round line
Oh,
posted right
they don't
now.
even have,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's,
So no,
this is kind of a brand new fight, so I think they're probably
yeah,
posting
brand
that
new
on
fight.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So yeah, I'm probably not gonna have a play on this one, but it's
for sure.
probably McKinney.
Cool. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. I mean, it might be a little dangerous to put a guy like McKinney as a parlay piece with his sus, tank, gas tank, and sus chin. But I don't know. He kind of convinced me a little bit in that last fight against Mike Breeden. I mean, as long as he can just like come in with a predator mentality, like an alpha mentality, and just like knock some people out or like ground and pound them or sub them, I think he's got it. So yeah, I mean, I do agree with those. I mean, it's not like a giga lock, right? It's like it's not a lock. So possible parlay piece. I'll definitely see the weigh in, see feel out their vibe, and kind of see how it attack from there. And I think when the round lines do drop, and then when the props drop, I think that'll give us a better indicator of how the bookies actually see this fight playing out. So that'll give us a
Mhm.
better, more information to try to see how to attack it. So yeah, I do agree with that. Next fight here that we have on the prelims, moving pretty quickly now. It's going to be another WMMA fight. Yeah, this it's going to be Tainara Lisboa versus Ravena Oliveira. Um, Lisboa is 6-2. She is 4-1 in her last five. 32 years old. 5'7", 67-inch reach. She's going up against Ravena Oliveira, 7-1-1, 5-0 in her last five, 26 years old, so she's going to be the younger fighter. Slightly shorter fighter at 5'5", reach, not too much there available even. Um, you know, this is going to be interesting too. We have another UFC debut against a person who has fought once in the UFC. So, I mean, Lisboa did a pretty good. I remember her performance against Jessica Rose Clark, who's a veteran. I think she did pretty well in that fight. She ended up actually submitting Jessica Rose Clark. So that's something that I really like to see from fighters is that, even if she had the easy decision in hand, she always played it to the kind of whistle, if you will, and went for the finish. So that's something that I do like when I see her. Lisboa, she does have great power. I think that she's a pretty good clinch striker as well. She has a lot of Muay Thai champion kind of accolades. If you look at her background, so I think that she does have really good stand-up skills. She was doing great against the feet against Jessica Rose Clark, who was a USC vet. Um, from the tape, I think that in the past she did get out grappled a bit, especially coming from more of like a Muay Thai kind of background. But she really stayed safe against Clark and showed good improvement in that area. So I do like that she's been improving, even if she's the older fighter in this case. Oliveira, she also comes from a similar kind of background. She has good Muay Thai skills, not as decorated as Lisboa, though. She does look for takedowns as well, but I think that she mainly engages in the clinch to obtain them. And I think that could be a bad recipe against a dangerous Muay Thai clinch kind of technician in Lisboa. So for this fight, I mean, just let you know of the odds. Lisboa is -310. She opened up at a -450. So there has been some dog money that's been taken on Lisboa there, or actually Oliveira there. Um, but God, I mean, UFC debut, and usually what I like to say and what I've kind of noticed is that, for women's MMA, if it's a debuting fighter, usually they are going to be of a, I think there's going to be more of a skill gap there because I don't know if there's going to be that many, women in MMA that are actually that good in a sense. I think that that part of the game is still developing in MMA. And when you break down these fights, you kind of have to see what the matchups are and why they're matching up certain fighters. So they matched up Lisboa against Jessica Rose Clark, who's a vet in her UFC debut. Um, I think that they were probably done with Jessica Rose Clark because she had taken a lot of L's at that point. Probably had really like big show money, so they're paying her probably a lot compared to other fighters. At this time, they're putting Lisboa against Oliveira, right? So I think that just because of that, I feel like they're giving Lisboa an easier matchup just to match up with her and kind of get her a little bit more steam going in her career. So then she could kind of match up with another fighter later on. I don't really see Oliveira as being a really the UFC's play in a way. I think Lisboa is still the play. That's why they fed her Jessica Rose Clark, and that's why Oliveira is fighting her. So I don't think that they're going to feed Lisboa to this Ravena Oliveira person. Pick is Lisboa, but once again, I don't play WMMA. So, Gerard, what were your thoughts on this fight here?
So it seems to me that Lisboa, she's probably just all around the better fighter than Ravena in terms of experience, stand up, and even grappling and submissions. Um, yeah, like you said, a debut women's MMA skill gap is probably going to be a big thing here. I think, yeah, Lisboa is probably going to have the advantage all around. That's why she's such a big favorite when she opened, I think. Um, but then again, I think maybe the people who were hammering the underdog was watching Kanako versus Vanessa. And it's like, oh, any dog woman's
Yeah,
fighter can win it. any
valuable ROI right there.
any huge any huge woman's underdog maybe has a 50-50
Yeah,
chance of getting the dub. So yeah, this is a pass for me, but I think Lisboa should win. But if it goes to a decision, then you never know. Uh, Ravena, she's a striker herself, so we got to see how the judges see it. Yeah, if Lisboa maybe be able to get a submission or something. She has the grappling advantage, so yeah, Lisboa should win. But it's another pass for me.
yeah. I could easily see this being like a 29-28 Ravena decision on all three judges' part. Like, I could definitely see it because I mean they're both pretty similar in style, right? Like you mentioned, I think obviously Lisboa is more decorated in probably all facets of the game, but it's very
Mhm.
similar style in terms of that fight and how it's going to go down. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Um, let's move on to the next fight on the prelims. Is going to be the feature prelim of the card. So it's going to be the last fight of the prelim here. We have Darren Elkins, Darren the Damage Elkins. I gotta say his whole name just for the viewers. Darren the Damage Elkins versus TJ Downtown Brown. Yeah, it's going to be a very fun fight, I think. Darren Elkins, he is 27-11, 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off against that JSP, Jonathan St. Pierce. He, Jonathan Pierce just really manhandled him throughout that decision. So coming off pretty brutal beating, in my opinion. 39 years old, 5'10", 71-inch reach. He is the classic UFC vet, right? The guy that is from the kind of stone ages of the UFC. Um, TJ Brown, downtown, is 17-10. He's also 3-2 in his last five. He's coming off of that submission against Bill Algeo, where he got submitted by rear naked choke. 33 years old, so he is going to be the younger fighter here compared to 39 years old for Darren Elkins. 5'9", 72-inch reach. So they're both pretty similar in terms of their physical attributes. Um, just looking at their stats here, there's a reason why this guy is named the Damage. I mean, he is take one to give one. He does land three. Surprisingly, he does have a positive striking differential, but from the last few fights that I've seen, doesn't seem like it. Seems like it just takes a lot of damage. 3.53 strikes land per minute, 3.35 strikes absorbed. He does have some solid grappling as far as the 2.73 takedowns every 15 minutes. But you have to keep in mind, I mean, Darren Elkins is 39 years old, right? So the stats may be kind of skewed just because of the amount of times this guy's actually fought. I mean, he's been just to let you know, this guy has fought since 2010. He fought Charles Oliveira in 2010. So this guy's been in the UFC for a long time. He also fought Dwayne Ludwig, who's a coach now. So this guy's a seasoned vet. If I say so myself, this guy's a very seasoned vet. Um, it, just being blunt here, I mean, I think TJ seems like the better younger fighter here. TJ is a more of a wrestling based fighter, but he does mix in the stand up, maybe sometimes to his own detriment because he does get he can get knocked out at times. Um, I think that TJ also he does have some bad IQ moments, so at times like that Beal Algeo fight, I mean, he can stay in the pocket for too long and get dropped like he did in that fight. He can also get out grapple controlled, like when he fought the near Becca, right? Um, so he's shown me that he has multiple ways to lose, which is not great if you're a favorite, in my opinion. He does have some good offensive grappling, but I think he has pretty poor defensive grappling. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, a sus gas tank as well. So the thing that Darren Elkins probably does have over him, even though Darren Elkins, I think, is not UFC caliber anymore, I think that he does have good durability and a good cardio, good gas tank. Even though he's bad as far as his skill set, he can weather storms and not get tired. So that's something that when you match him up against TJ Brown, who has a sus gas tank, bad IQ, bad defensive wrestling, I could easily see TJ Brown, even though he's the younger, better fighter overall in terms of skill, I could see him getting into a dogfight with Darren Elkins, and that might not be good to get in a dogfight with a guy that's named the Damage, because even if you damage him, he's just going to keep coming forward at you, and you have to have like un you have to have a pretty good pace, like a JSP, Jonathan Pierce, where he just kept on taking him down, ground and pounding him, and controlling him. But do I trust TJ Brown to do that? I don't know. Based on the odds, I mean, TJ Brown's a minus 180 right now, opened up at minus 225. So people did take that Darren Elkins dog money. And that's the theme that we're seeing right throughout this whole card. A lot of these fights, people are taking the dog money here. There hasn't really been that favorite that has kind of stayed that favorite, unless it's Terrence McKinney, but that those lines just kind of dropped like really recently, so we don't have too much action on that one yet. So a lot of people have been taking dog money on a lot of these fights, so that's really interesting there. Um, yeah, I think I'm staying away from this fight. I mean, I can't trust either fighter, honestly. TJ Brown has almost 2-1 fave with all of his question marks. I think I'm good on that, especially against a UFC vet like Darren Elkins, who can survive and get to a potentially gritty decision. I think that I'm good. So I'll stay away from this fight. Can't trust either fighter. The pick is going to be TJ Brown, but I'm staying away from this fight. What do you think about this feature prelim here?
um, Darren Elkins, the Damage. I think, man,
That dude
he's
has
been
the
he's been
damage tattooed across his chest. It's
yeah,
crazy. That's crazy.
he's been at this game for a while now, and 27-11 is impressive.
Yeah.
That's that's a decorated record. And TJ Brown already has 10 losses, and he's only at 17 wins. Um, so yeah, there's the experience there for sure. I think Darren Elkins probably has the highest premium MMA health insurance in the game right now, because I think I heard somewhere that maybe somewhere in the first round or something, he off of a takedown or something against Jonathan Pierce,
Hmm.
JSP. He injured he had 3 injuries
Oh,
from
right. Yeah.
from from that fight off of one move, I think. And then he continued, he finished the fight. He went
Yeah.
all 3 rounds. He didn't stop or cry or do a verbal quit or submission. He just continued even with the injuries. And yeah, this guy just keeps coming. So that's a dangerous thing. I think when I look at him, I see no real fight talent, but his talent is his effort and his gas tank. That's his premier talent in fighting is that effort. He just keeps coming. Um, yeah, he can really grind it out, and that could be a huge problem for TJ Brown, whose whose best skill is game for anything. So he's game to trade and gamble during the fight when he could just be using his skills and just be not too risky and just stick to the game plan of just striking, get out of there, don't stay in the pocket too long. Um, and yeah, he has good, decent offense in wrestling. So this fight, I don't know. I think Darren Elkins and TJ Brown's wrestling might cancel out each other in this fight. Darren Elkins is 39 now, and I do think Father Time is gonna be catching up, and it could be this fight. Um, yeah, TJ Brown, I think okay, I don't know. I'm not in his head. I don't know if he's gonna choose to increase his IQ in the fight, but once he hears the fight starts, it's like that all goes away. It's like, all right, let's
Exactly.
bang. He's like, all right, nice one, let's go, and then trade. He's ready to trade. Uh, yeah, and then he ends up losing even when he's winning those fights. But I think Father Time will catch up in this one and actually have TJ Brown as my lock
Wow.
on this card. And that says a lot about how hard this card is to find a lock to where I go to TJ Brown. So this could just be a high confidence play, but he's actually the only fighter on this card that I found as a possible lock who's not a crazy favorite.
Mm.
So yeah, TJ Brown is my lock on this card. And yeah, I think there maybe UFC is trying to find a fighter to get Darren Elkins to retire at some point,
Mhm.
and it might be TJ Brown.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, lock for TJ Brown. Never thought I'd hear those words, but here we are in this card, right? Like you mentioned, it's a very hard card to predict. So I think that there's going to be not a lot of opportunities as far as for a Giga lock. Just curious, I mean, how do you think this fight's going to play out? If you say TJ Brown's going to win, do you think he's going to finish or like decision, or what were your thoughts there?
I think I think TJ is live for a finish because I think Darren Elkins is happy to stand and bang,
Mm.
stand and trade, and I think just over the years he's had so many. Yeah, he's tested his chin so much that it it laps TJ Brown's chin by miles. So I think
Yeah.
Brown's youth and his power will be able to do more damage than what Darren Elkins will bring if TJ chooses to trade and gamble at times. And I am also impressed with TJ Brown's submission grappling. So he has that in his pocket if he chooses to use it. But Darren Elkins is a great wrestler and a great gas tank. So it could be a tougher, but he does have it in his pocket.
Cool. Well, that was the last fight in the prelims there. Just to kind of recap, I mean, at least from my end, the only plays that I would say are, parlayable, if you will, so far is the over 2.5 on Ashley Yoder versus Emily Ducote. perhaps Chris Gutierrez, depending on how I see the face-offs there, and then Terrence McKinney. So everything else, I'm like, hey, granted, there's been like what three or two or three WMMA fights, and I'm staying away from those. And unfortunately, we have one on the main card as well, so we got to break that one. But I'm probably gonna stay away
Mhm.
from that one too. Let's just move on to the main card here. Moving at a pretty good pace right now. This is going to be, I think this is going to be a very fun fight. We have two young, up and coming prospects, if you will. We have Christian Rodriguez, C Rod, if you will. He's going up against Cameron Saaiman. Christian Rodriguez, 9-1, 4-1 his last five, coming off of that convincing, emphatic victory over Raul Rosas Jr. 25 years old, 5'7", 71-inch reach. Um, Fighting against Cameron Saaiman, 9-0, 5-0 in his last five, so he's undefeated prospect from South Africa, 22 years old, so he's going to be the younger fighter here, but both of these guys are pretty young. 5'8", 70, 67-inch reach, so he does have a reach disadvantage there. C-Rod has a 4-inch reach advantage over him. Just to kind of go over some of the stats, because both these guys, even though they're young, they both have a lot of UFC fights under their belt already. So they're kind of UFC veterans, if you will. But C Rod, I mean, good striking differential. He does land at a lower volume than Cameron Saaiman. 2.89 landed per minute for C Rod, 5.41 landed per minute for Cameron Saaiman. Cameron Saaiman is also the more accurate striking fighter. He's 48% compared to 43% for C Rod. Um, his defense, they're about the same. Cameron Saaiman seems like a more offensive grappling focused kind of fighter as far as takedowns, but C Rod does have some pretty interesting scrambles and submissions in this game as well, as you saw with the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, right? He was able to kind of stuff a lot of those takedowns that Raul Rosas had for him after round one, and was able to control that fight as well in the grappling department. Um, I think that this fight could be pretty interesting just because it's two up and coming prospects. So I know it's very undetermined who the UFC wants to push in this case because Cameron Simoni's coming off against a win against a can, right? I think Terrence Mitchell, he fought Terrence Mitchell, and that guy is just a guy that they leave around just to finish. I mean, you saw what Raul Rosas Jr. did to Terrence Mitchell his last fight, right? Just like straight up knocked him out. So that's why they signed that guy. But Z-Rod, I mean, he's coming off that win against Raul Rosas Jr. So, I mean, who are they really trying to promote here? I'm not too sure. Um, just because of the similarities between them, I mean, I I think that this is just going to be a super tough fight to kind of cap in a way because C Rod right now he's minus 145. He opened up at a minus 170, so not too much action in this fight so far. Um, when I do break down the tape, though, I think that Cameron Simon is the better striker. But if he tries to go for a more grappling focused game plan, I think that's where he potentially could run into trouble, like how Raul Rosas Jr. ran into trouble, right? Because C Rod, very underrated grappler, in my opinion. Um, he's has really good scrambles, like I said. He knows how to stay safe, and then he also knows how to reverse positions as well to kind of get himself on top. So I'm just not too sure. I mean, I want to go with Cameron Saaiman here, but because like I think that he is a more exciting kind of pressure fighter, right? He fights at the same camp that Dricus du Plessis does, so both of them have kind of interesting striking games, interesting grapple games. I really like how these guys fight, but I think C Rod's one of those guys that I think you have to be a UFC veteran in order to beat him, or someone who has more experience than him because if he fights someone that has similar experience to him or like maybe younger, he seems to be the more composed and smarter fighter in there. And Cameron Simon, I mean, even though he came off of that really good win, I think when he was fighting like Manny Martinez or like he he does wear some damage on his face and his just his kind of overall style. So I think he's a little bit hittable in that sense. Um, the pick here is gonna be, I think, C Rod, but I'm staying away from this as well, just because I think that this is probably a kind of 50-50 fight. And even though I pick a C Rod, if I were to kind of play this fight, I would say dog or pass, because I do think that it's going to be a 50-50 fight. But yeah, pick a C Rod, but I think this once again is something that I'm going to probably stay away from. I think an interesting way to play it could be the over 2.5 potentially, because I do think that this probably will go to the decision. It's at minus 175 right now, so not too bad there. But pick here is C Rod, but yeah, I think I'm gonna probably pass on this fight. Gerard, what do you think about this fight here on the main card?
I definitely see the talent in Cameron Saaiman. I think he can do both striking and the grappling. He mixes it up a lot and is able to reverse positions as well, kind of like Christian Rodriguez. So in a way, it's like you're watching two of the same styles, kind
Yeah,
of. And I'm not too sure how big of an advantage Simon will have against a Christian Rodriguez in terms of stand up. Um, it looks like Cameron will have like nicer, uh, nicer toolbox of strikes to throw, but I think they're pretty much kind of even, and maybe even Christian Rodriguez might be more disciplined and less risk taking in terms of striking, which is why you see Cameron sometimes seeing taking damage more often than a C Rod. So they might be pretty even in terms of striking. And in terms of grappling, yeah, I think this is where Christian, I think he just has proven experience, I think. And you've seen that him taking on the prospect prodigy in Raul Rosas and how he handled that blitzkrieg of a onslaught. He was just calm, cool, collected through the whole thing, and just it seemed like he kind of finished the fight like easily. Like he wasn't really sweating about the pressure. He like, okay, I've dealt with things like this or worse than this before. It's this young guy just going full blazing at me. Um, Cameron Simon might be more. He'll probably be more calculated and not jumping the gun as much like that. But I think he might do some. He might take some risks that Christian Rodriguez might be able to capitalize on, whether it's grappling or even stand up, because he can get hit from what I've seen from Simon and Rodriguez. It looks like all his fights. It looks like he doesn't look like he's like losing
yeah,
that much. Like even the loss that he had, I think it was in a higher weight class, and he looked good against the JSP Jonathan Pierce. So I I'm I'm not sure if UFC really wants to. Um, I don't know who UFC wants to feed Christian Rodriguez to Simon or Simon to Rodriguez. Maybe they're just trying to see who's the better fighter here and just build off of that. I mean, they're both young, so they still got a lot of runway. Um, I think, yeah, I'm at a, I think I'm at a low to medium confidence here for C Rod. I think he's just seen more and is more prepared because I think Simon he hasn't proven too much. We see the talent, we just haven't seen him tested yet. And we see kind of seen Rodriguez tested against better competition. And yeah, we haven't seen him lose to a younger fighter either. So yeah, I got C Rod here.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think the pick C-Rod for me too. I actually think that this is one of those cases that the UFC, I think they put these two together just so, like you mentioned, see who wins, and then they're probably going to push that person up, and then maybe give the loser like another can, if you will, right? So whoever loses, they'll probably give them like Terrence Mitchell again or something, or find another Terrence Mitchell for them. So yeah, I think
Mhm.
this is a just an interesting matchup, 50-50 fight in my opinion, and best of luck to both men there. Next fight that we have on the main card, we have uh, Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. We're running it back right now. So these two guys, if you guys don't remember, I think they fought like a week or two ago or something, and then they had that unfortunate premature stoppage of that ref. So they're kind of booked here on the fight again on the main card this time, no less. Edgar Chairez, 10-5. You know, 27 years old, 5'7", 72-inch reach. He's going up against Daniel Lacerda, 11-5, coming off of one draw and then four straight losses. So he's been losing a lot in the UFC. And each of those losses have been finishes. So he's been ground and pounded in two of them. He got a knee bar submission in one of them, and then just knocked out like a counter right to ground strikes in one of them. So he's been finishing each fight. 27 years old, so same age. They're about the same height. Slight reach advantage to Edgar Chairez. Um, I think this is a pretty easy fight to to cap in a way, just because they fought already. Odds wise, Edgar Chairez right now is minus 340, and he opened up at minus 225. So a lot of people are just kind of hammering Edgar Chairez in a way, and I don't blame them. I mean, the first time they fought, I thought that I thought Daniel Sarah actually had a chance. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm reading some of the comments that this guy is saying. You know, he's saying that he's coming in with a different game plan. You know, he's going to kind of pace himself and not be first round or bust like he usually does. You know, he's a very entertaining fighter, right? He always tries to go for the kill in the first like few like minutes. You kind of saw that last the fight that he had with CJ Vergara, right? Very entertaining fight. He had CJ Vergara running around the ring like playing merry-go-round. So I mean, that's a very fun. He's a very fun fighter, but I finally understand why he's a huge underdog in all of his fights. Because I mean, this guy just for whatever reason just finds a way to lose, man. Like I just don't think that he's one of those guys that knows how to win a fight. Even if he's very exciting, he kind of throws a lot of caution in the wind and kind of busts his load in the first few minutes. And then once the avalanche comes back at him, he doesn't really know how to handle it. You saw CJ Vergara, even though CJ Vergara was running around that ring. I mean, eventually CJ Vergara found a finish on on Daniel Lacerda, as crazy as that seems. So I just can't trust Daniel Lacerda anymore. I mean, I think that technically he is the better striker in this matchup. He does have some pretty good grappling skills, but Edgar Chairez, I think, is probably better to him in the grappling. Definitely has a better kind of gas tank, better durability as well. Um, I think that no matter what Lacerda does, he's just gonna be in a fight where he's gonna eventually find a way to lose. So that's why I think that he's been kind of faded in a way. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, the beginning of this breakdown, right, this whole kind of breakdown for this card, I think that is better to fade fighters rather than ride them. So although I don't think that Edgar Chairez is like that great of a fighter, I mean he had a pretty close call with Taituso Taira, right? The Japanese prospect that's really up and coming. You know, I think that it's going to be enough to fade Daniel Lacerda because I think Daniel Lacerda will find a way to lose this fight, even if it's going to be entertaining. So I'm fading Daniel Lacerda here. I'm putting Edgar Chairez in my parlays. I'm considering this a lock in my opinion. Might as well just put it in the parlays. So, pick here is Edgar Chairez. Pretty confident. I would say like medium to high confidence. Um, Gerard, what are your thoughts here on this rematch that they have after the premature stoppage?
So I think Edgar Chairez, he should win this. We seen the first go how it went. Um, yeah, I think he's a minus 340 now,
Hmm.
and I think it's been slowly going up. Uh, I watched the fight again, and I was actually a little bit more impressed with Daniel Lacerda, despite the outcome. And the more I thought about it, I think this fight might actually have upset potential because
Hmm.
Lacerda, he's been in there. He's felt how it was like against Edgar Chairez, and he showed composure and he slowed down. He let the fight come to him, and he was looking good on the stand up. He was looking like better than Edgar in that first round up until that point when the ref stopped it. And I'm not too sure if Edgar Chairez was going to finish that or not. We don't know. Maybe Lacerda knew how to handle that for some reason, maybe, and he was surprised of the ref stopping it because I think maybe in this camp, I think he really honed in on making this fight right, and it was just such a huge letdown that the fight ended the way it did because I think maybe he put in a lot of work into that fight, and he was just so upset that it happened like that. So now they're at a catch weight at 5 pounds heavier. So that might work towards Edgar Chairez because from weigh-ins last time, it looked like Edgar Chairez was looking kind of rough compared to Daniel Lacerda at Noche UFC weigh-ins. Um, I think Lacerda has a taste of what Edgar Chairez's grappling is like, and might know might have a better edge or chance to stay away from those situations. As he might have a better game plan for that now that they're fighting again. It's not too often where you get a second chance at the mistakes that you had in a fight to go to a no contest and then have that fight run that back like very soon like this. So Lacerda has some. I think there's some going for Lacerda actually. Now that he had that experience with the same fighter, and yeah, this is he might show something here because he has extra information, extra data to make this a better fight. And we've seen how Lacerda is able to almost find wins and then let it slip away. So I actually, this is like another parlay hedge for me.
Mm.
My pick is still Edgar Chairez, but I see upset potential for an extra juice boost from a big underdog in Lacerda in this fight.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. How do you think this fight's going to play out, just as far as like the result? Do you think if their pick is Edgar Chairez, what do you think he's going to do?
I think eventually I think he could find the submission again, but
Mm.
it might even take longer because Lacerda has already is aware of that and has felt that and is aware of what situations not to put himself in. So it might be harder this time around for Edgar Chairez to find that finish. So one thing in this that I might like is over 1.5 might be a good play
Ooh,
because now we have a Lacerda who's extra cautious and yeah, looks like he wants to play this smart on a second go. So that might be a good option there. Yeah, Chairez might be able to get a decision win, but Lacerda's always in finishes, so maybe this will last longer than 1.5. But
got it.
Lacerda maybe surprise people, maybe find something in terms of striking. I mean, he was doing better striking, so maybe he'll go back to striking and ground and pound. So that's one way he can go about it. or Lacerda at least.
Yeah, yeah. Over 1.5 right now is plus 155. So you're getting pretty decent dog money on that prop right there. Um, yeah, I mean, trust me, man. I said all the same things you said, except for that kind of new info about, the new fight. Because I did pick Daniel Lacerda in that breakdown of Noche UFC, but once the fight happened, man, just he just got caught in that sub, and I mean, I personally I think that he was going to finish it, but the ref, obviously we're never going to know, right? Because the ref stopped it prematurely, but yeah, I mean, Daniel Lacerda. Let's see what he does because he is an entertaining fighter, and I actually am rooting for him because I think he's more entertaining than Edgar Chairez. But yeah, we'll see about that fight. Um, Next fight that we have on the main card here that we're moving on. This is going to be a pretty fun fight. I think it's going to be a banger with two contrasting kind of styles, if you will. We have Michel Pereira versus Andre Petroski. This is going to be in the middleweight division because Michel can't weight cut anymore. So he used to be fighting at 170. Obviously, he was about to fight Stephen Wonder Boy Thompson, I think in Utah there, and he missed weight. So because of that, they pulled him out of that fight, and now he's going to move up to kind of avoid that situation going forward. Michel Pereira, 28-11, 5-0 in his last five, so obviously a wealth of experience. He's from Brazil, 30 years old, 6'1", 73-inch reach, fighting against Andre Petroski, 10-1, 5-0 in his last five. 32 years old, 6 feet, 73-inch reach. Same physical attributes for both fighters here. Um, when I kind of broke down the tape for this fight, I mean, I think that it was pretty interesting because this is Michel's the much better striker. I mean, there's no other way to kind of say it. I think in terms of volume and technique, he's just the much better striker in this matchup. He started off pretty wild in his career, right, with that like that dancing style, like capoeira or something. How do you say it? Do you know how to say it?
Capoeira,
Capoeira, yeah. So he
capoeira.
started off with that
Yeah.
kind of dancing style, doing a lot of like backflips, side steps, and like cage
That,
jumps.
that
Like,
part I don't think is capoeira. I think he's
oh, you just
just
doing that stuff?
styling and entertaining. That's just
Got it.
him be acting a fool, I think.
So he was doing a lot of like showboating, if you will, in his early part of his career. But if you actually watch like his last few fights, not a lot of that showboating style anymore. I mean, and it's translated into a lot of wins, right? He started off doing that wild stuff, but since he's kind of settled down, and in addition to that nice technique and volume that he has in his striking and power, also. He's also incorporated more grappling because he's using his kind of physical attributes because he's a really strong guy. If you look at him, like very cut, very like a lot of muscle. So he's a very strong guy, very good raw strength. So he's using a lot more grappling and kind of incorporating that in his fights, and it's resulted in five straight dubs. So I mean, I don't blame him. I think that was a good move to start incorporating that. Um, because his last fight, I think the first time that he lost was against this short notice guy named Tristan Connolly, and I think after that loss, he kind of reevaluated. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, I need to be a more serious fighter, right? Like, I can't just lose to this guy who, like, I think that Tristan Connolly was like coming up in weight, and it was like a really big upset, and Tristan Connolly just like beat him up pretty much for the whole 3 rounds and kind of UD'd him in a way. So that was a very embarrassing kind of effort from Michel Pereira where he kind of, got outgassed and outpaced in that fight. But he is coming off five straight wins, pretty good wins. Uh, that last win that he did have was against Santiago Ponzinibbio, which was a split, so it was a really close fight. Uh, and before that, he beat Andre Fiallo, Nico Price, Chaos Williams. So pretty good kind of record, if you will. Fighting against Andre Petroski, I mean, about this guy, the thing that what he does is he's a pretty good grappler, in my opinion. He comes from that Philly Renzo Gracie gym, whatever you like to call it. So they all have kind of good grappling skills, but Man, if you watch his last fight against Gerald Mearshart, right? It was a split decision win that he got, and it was a really close fight. I mean, Andre Petroski got that knockdown in the early part, but Gerald Mearshart, he really kind of in the rounds, like in the later rounds, he made it a really close fight and kind of took it to him in a dogfight style, if you will. So I think that Andre Petroski might have been potentially lucky to get that dub, even though I did kind of score for him, but I think Jeremy Sharp really gave him a run for his money there. Um, in his other fights, I mean, he's just been kind of dominating when he's grappling. I mean, this guy gets 4.56 takedowns per minute or per 15 minutes, so that's a lot. 54% takedown accuracy, 71% takedown defense. He does go for the subs, so that's something that I do like about him. He does have a good submission game. Uh, he has already two subs in the UFC, one knocked out. So he does like to try to finish his fights, but if it's against like a higher caliber kind of fighter, like a Gerald Mearshart, or even let's say like a Wellington Turman, right? He doesn't really get those finishes. The only finishes that he's had is against like Nick Maximov, who's not UFC caliber in my opinion, and then two other guys who are not in the UFC anymore that I know of. This is going to be the classic grappler versus striker matchup. Um, I think, me personally, just looking at the odds here, I think Andre is about to get exposed, in my opinion. Michel Pereira opened up at plus 190, and now he's minus 210. So instantly bet to a pick 'em, and now he's a 2-1 favorite. I think that that price is getting a little high. I would say that I would parlay probably Michelle up to a minus like 225, 230. And then after that, it probably gets a little high because Andre is a fantastic grappler. He does have good pace. He does have underrated power also, even though he just like swings wildly, right? If you saw that knockdown that he got against Gerald Mearshart, I mean, if he does land on you, he could knock you down and potentially knock you out. But I think that going up against a guy like a Michel Pereira, who is better as far as technique and volume against him, I just don't. I think that Michel is going to put on a master class moving up in weight here. I think he's going to be the quicker fighter. He might have even more raw power than Andre Petroski as far as the striking power there. But yeah, I mean the pick here is Michel Pereira. I I'll think about parlaying this just because I think that there's just such a big gap on the feet that I think that I just don't think Andre has anything for this guy on the feet. So unless Andre does a little bit of like grappling and like tries to take him down, I think that Andre could potentially even get knocked out in this fight. So pick here is Michelle Pereira, potentially a parlay piece, but we'll see how weigh-ins go. But yeah, that's my pick for now. Gerard, what do you think about this fight between Michelle Pereira and Andre Petroski?
Michel Pereira, he got he has the clear striking advantage, and I think it's like night and day because Andre Petroski, his striking is just atrocious. I think he all he has is that power. So if he can land that, he could maybe change the fight. But yeah, his striking, he doesn't set anything up. He's just winging shots and just trying to get a takedown, I think. So that's one thing he can do is the grappling part. That might be a big thing he can use here. But Pereira's probably seems like a guy who's kind of hard to take down, and he has size too and that strength. So I'm not sure how easy he'll be able to get Pereira down. I think Petroski, yeah, his I wasn't too impressed either by his grappling, but then again, he was facing Gerald Mearshart, so he was facing a pretty decent grappler there. Um, I think you would go Michelle Pereira. Um, it's like a low to medium confidence for me on Michelle Pereira, but The only thing I worry is if it is the wrestling aspect, if he's ready for this. Andre Petroski at a higher weight class in terms of grappling. And yeah, if this was a heavy favorite, Michel Pereira, he would kind of seem to me like a guy that would could possibly crash and burn if and be caught with a big punch or something. But maybe that's just me seeing the old Michel Pereira from before doing those flips and showboating days.
Yeah.
And I think he even painted his face as the Joker at
Oh,
face-offs before. So I guess that version would signal to me as like possible trap type of deal. But I think Michelle Pereira is probably the pick here. But yeah, Petrosky's a big guy, and the wrestling's the only thing to worry about. But yeah, it's night and day in terms of striking. Yeah, Petrosky, I don't even know. It's like if you get a bodybuilder off the street
yeah.
to strike with Petrosky, and they'll look the same. Is how
Wow.
I would describe
Yeah.
describe the the striking ability. But yeah, so probably Pereira here.
Yeah. I mean, Petoski is he's a wrestler through and through, man. I mean, he's just one of those. He looks like one of those like meatheads or blockhead people, you know. So I think that yeah, I think the striking when they're up on the feet, it's gonna be such a clear gap. But it is gonna be that interesting question of this gonna be a bigger fight for him. Like, is he gonna be able to handle that kind of physicalness of a Andre Petroski? Just because in the 170-pound division, Michelle has kind of been using that power and that kind of physical attribute that he has, right, to kind of dominate some of these fights or kind of win some of these fights. So it'll be interesting to see how he does against a bigger guy. We'll see what happens there. Next fight that we have on the main card, I think we have about three fights left. This is going to be the third fight in the main card. Actually, really interesting that this is not the co-main. I thought this would have been the co-main, but we have the third fight on the main card. It's going to be Jonathan Martinez versus Adrian Yanez. Jonathan Martinez, 18-4, 5-0 in his last five. He's coming off of that really good win, in my opinion, against Saeed Nurmagomedov. 29 years old, 5'8", 69.5-inch reach, going up against Adrian Yanez, 16-4, 4-1 his last five, coming off of that KO loss against Rob Font. 29 years old, so they're about both the same age, 5'7", about the same height, about the same reach. So they are, if you kind of do a mirror look of each of them, they're both pretty similar in all aspects of their physical attributes. Um, Digging into the stats of this fight, you see here that Adrian Yanez, I mean, he pumps out a lot of volume. He has really slick kind of boxing, right? When I see the tape of him, Jonathan Martinez, really good kickboxer, likes to incorporate more kicks into his striking game. He's the more accurate striker here at 49% compared to 40% for Adrian Yanez. Um, they're about the same defensive kind of fighter. It's just Adrian pumps out a little bit more volume than Jonathan does on the feet. Grappling wise, I mean, I haven't really seen any grappling from Adrian yet. I mean, he does have some pretty good takedown defense, but nothing that will be an offensive kind of grappling case from him. Jonathan Martinez, kind of the same deal. He incorporates his grappling a little more, but not too much. So kind of leads me to kind of say that this fight will be fought on the feet, right? I think that both these guys will be looking to kind of bang and go on the feet here. It's going to be a stand-up kind of war. Jonathan Martinez really impressed me with that last win that he had. I actually picked Saeed Nurmagomedov over him just because I thought that Saeed was going to be too wild for him. I mean, I thought that he was going to be just like as far as like he's going to like do some like spinning stuff that Jonathan might not have been prepared for. But Jonathan really impressed me with his composure and his gas tank and like he's just overall dog. Like I really liked him like when you really look at the way he fights, I think he's a great dog kind of fighter. But in this case, I mean, if you look at the odds, it's a little different now. I mean, Jonathan Martinez now is he opened up just to tell you he opened up at a plus 250, and now it's a pick 'em. So a lot of people took that dog money right away and made this guy a pick 'em right away, which I think it should be a pick 'em. I think that that's actually correct. I have no idea why Jonathan Martinez opened at plus 250. I think that's pretty crazy, especially coming off a pretty good dub there. He's minus 110 now, actually. Yeah, I mean, I think this is another 50-50 fight, right? They're going to kind of see who is going to come out on top here and then promote that person after. I mean, Adrian Yanaz, I mean, he does have pretty good boxing, although I think that his technique was a little exposed in that Rob Font fight because when you watch Adrian fight, I mean, he more of like a hook kind of fighter. He doesn't have like that raw font jab or straight, and that's what kind of got him, right? Like, I mean, even though he did take a hook to the face, I mean, I think Rob Font, when you watched the fight right away, you saw that Rob was the cleaner guy. I mean, he was just a more tight, compact kind of stand-up style, and going up against a guy like Jonathan Martinez, who kind of kickboxes, that does a lot of different things that could throw Adrian off. I mean, I think that I would have to go Jonathan Martinez here. I think that Adrian, just looking at some of his performances over the years, I mean, he might be a little bit overrated, honestly. If you look at some of the quality wins that he's had, I mean, lost against Rob Font, he beat up some veterans, had a split decision win over Davy Grant, and then as far as his knockouts, even though there are highlights, I mean, look at who he's been knocking out, like Gustavo Lopez, Victor Rodriguez, Randy Costa, like Tony Kelly, like I mean, these guys. I'm pretty sure some of these guys aren't in the UFC anymore. I'll make I'll make a bet that some of these guys aren't in the UFC. I think Victor Rodriguez might be. Let me kind of pull up his profile. I think he's the guy that lost. Yeah, yeah, he's not in the UFC anymore. So it's just yeah, not a lot of UFC guys that he's fought that's actually still there. And then the few times that he's fought that people are in the UFC, Davy Grant and Rob Font. It was a close split decision win that he got over Davy Grant, and he got knocked out by Rob Font. And granted, Rob Font is like a top 10, 135er, right? So that's a really big gap for him as far as the skill set and the rankings. But I think Jonathan's got this. I mean, I think that Jonathan's coming off of that good momentum win against Said Nurmagomedov. I think that he's been training day in and day out. He's going to look to try to get on top of the rankings. And if you look at his fights too, I mean, he knocked out Cub Swanson. I think that's a pretty decent win. He did get, knocked out by Davy Grant, but I think that when you saw that knockout that David Grant did, it was just one of those things that hey, like David Grant just straight up nuked him, right? Sometimes that happens, and that was the only knockout of his career. So I don't think that he's that chinny. It's just that he got caught with like a really big nuke. It's just sent him like getting knocked out. So that happens sometimes in your career. Take it on the chin and move forward. And ever since that knockout, he's like 5-0, and in four of those wins have been unanimous decisions. So I think he's durable enough to withstand whatever Adrian's got for him, and I think he mixes up more than Adrian does. So the pick is going to be Jonathan Martinez. I might be inclined to even do like a straight money line play here, or potentially like a prop, maybe like Jonathan Martinez by knockout or decision, based on how the odds go. I mean, right now it's a pick 'em, right? So you could get a lot of good value either way. Right now, Jonathan Martinez by points is plus 275, by knockout is plus 300. So if you really feel like there's a good way to kind of play it either way, I think that those are some good ways to get juice odds there. Yeah, so pick is Jonathan Martinez, and potentially could be a parlay piece for me, depending on how the face-offs go, because I think that would be pretty telling. I want to see how these guys feel each other and kind of look at each other and how they kind of, how they display their body language in a way. Gerard, what do you think about this fight here?
I really like Jonathan Martinez's like toolbox. He can mix it up.
Mhm.
He's like you said, like those kicks. against Cub Swanson. That was pretty.
Oof.
That was a
Yeah,
really good win, I think. And Cub Swanson himself is a slick boxer, so to be able to put away a slick boxer like that is pretty. It's pretty good. Um, yeah, I just see him. He grinds out wins against some quality guys too, especially his last fight against Nurmagomedov. Yeah, that's something that we haven't seen Adrian Yanez have done yet. But um, I see Jonathan Martinez having more ways to work against Adrian Yanez, definitely. But now that this is a pick'em, Yanez, he does have some clean striking that I like. Uh, Before seeing the odds, I was definitely on the Jonathan Martinez for sure. I wish I had that the dog odds for that. That was how
plus
do we
two
find
fifty.
these plus 250?
Yeah,
Like I want to we need like some tracker to all right, odds are up and maybe in the future we'll get that to you guys, but
right.
um yeah, I wish I had that dog, the dog play on Martinez. But how often are you going to see even money on an Adrian Yanez even? And I think that's value there too. Even money, Adrian Yanez, I think that's even a good play as well. Um, Originally, I did like Jonathan Martinez, but to how close this fight can go, um, I'll pick whichever dog it is.
Mm.
And right now, it's Adrian Yanez. And I, I also now that I think about it too, Adrian Yanez does have that finishing ability, that it factor that is not so clear with Jonathan Martinez. So I'm at a low confidence Adrian Yanez or pick the dog, whoever it is at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean your analysis makes sense. I mean it's a pick 'em for a reason. I think this fight could go either way. That's why I suggest say that for this fight, just pick a side and go one of those props that I mentioned. I think that by points or by KO, whichever way you think that's going to end, I personally lean towards this fight is probably going to go. Now that I think about it, probably points, just because I'm on the Jonathan Martinez side, I slightly lean towards that. So I think he is going to outpoint Adrian here. But yeah, I mean, and that's plus 275 right now. So I think that's a better way to play it rather than just do the minus 110 there. Uh, yeah, so that'll be my play for that. We'll move on to the next fight here on the main card. This is going to be the co-main event, so we're finally almost to the main event. It's going to be the fight between Jennifer Maya versus Viviana Arujo, or Vivi, like I like to call her. Jennifer Maya, 21 and 9-1. She is 3-2 in her last five, coming off of that pretty convincing win against Casey O'Neill about 6 months ago or so. 35 years old, so seasoned vet, 5'4", 64-inch reach. It says here on Tapology that is she from Shootbox? I did not know that. So it looks like she's from Shootbox. Vivi Rujo, 11-5, 2-3 in her last five. Also from Brazil, 36 years old. So both these ladies are pretty seasoned vets at this point. 5'4", 68-inch reach. So she is a slightly longer fighter there. Um, the odds wise for this fight, Jennifer Maya right now is a minus 152, and she opened up at a minus 185. So interesting line movement there. Nothing too crazy either way. I'll just switch it up a little bit just so I want to hear your thoughts on this first, and then I'll give you my thoughts after. But yeah, what do you think about this fight here for Jennifer Maya and Vivi Rujo?
So both of these fighters have pretty good grappling and wrestling. Um, so I'm not too sure who has the better upper hand in terms of the wrestling aspect, but might be Viviani, but I think that'll be stopped for the most part by Jennifer, and especially with her boxing and striking that she seems to be improving at. And is going to be in her face, in Viviani's face a lot. And yeah, I think I just think it's just pretty simple uh, analysis here is that Jennifer Maya's most likely going to have the better boxing and striking, which is something that Viviani has shown she has trouble with. And it seems like she's always open for that straight right hand.
Yeah,
Viviani gets caught there every time in multiple fights. I see that with the Grasso fight. I see that with the Ribas fight.
yep.
Yeah, and she got dropped even though she was doing some submission attempts early. But yeah, she got the most damage. She was most damaged by that to the chin. Um, Jennifer Maya's boxing is probably going to be able to do the same thing. I think not sure if it'll have the same impact, but she'll definitely find it. She'll find the right hand, and I don't know if it'll drop her, but she'll probably find in terms of striking it that hand repeatedly throughout the fight. And I was considering Jennifer Maya as a lock, but then I remembered it's women's MMA.
There you go. There you
So I
go.
was like, wow, is is TJ really gonna be my lock on this card? I was like, TJ Brown's really gonna be my lock just because Jennifer Maya is women's MMA. So yeah, I have medium confidence here, Jennifer Maya. But again, women's MMA, things can get volatile in in the fight and especially volatile in the judging. So yeah, I'm gonna pass here, but I'm medium confidence Jennifer Maya.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I actually, my analysis is pretty on par with your analysis as far as what you think about it. Jennifer Maya really impressed me with that Casey O'Neill win. I mean, Casey O'Neill was the younger, longer fighter. Jennifer Maya really showed that kind of dirty boxing in a way, clinch work, really good clinch work as well, and kind of just stole, no, not stole, but she did a pretty emphatic win, in my opinion, on that. And I think she was a dog going into that fight. So showed a lot of people wrong, or proved a lot of people wrong in that fight. Um, so she's coming off pretty good dub. Vivi is coming off of that, in my opinion, just because like I was on her. Like, I thought that was a really embarrassing loss. I thought that she was gonna do a little bit better against Amanda Ribas because on the feet, I thought that she was going to be the better stand up fighter, even though she does incorporate grappling at times. I mean, she lands 1.81 takedowns per 15 minutes, so she does incorporate takedowns there, but it looked like a mismatch in like all facets of the game in that fight. I mean, she was trying to do the sub route right against Amanda Ribas, and anytime I see a fighter do that, where they try to pull up like Hail Mary subs after getting dominated, I mean that's a no go for me. So after that fight, I was like, hey, it might be time to fade her because Vivi just did not look like the same fighter that she usually does. Usually she has a pretty decent kind of striking, decent grappling as well, but she just got totally outclassed by Amanda Ribas there, and I don't think that she's gonna have much for Jennifer Maya. But like you mentioned, and like I mentioned before, I mean, I think that this is going to be, it has potential to go down to a really close decision if things play out the way that I think it might play out. Because right now, if you look at the odds, over 2.5, what would you guess would be the over 2.5 right now? Just curious what your thoughts are there before I tell
Over
you.
2.5
Yeah, what do you think it is right now without looking?
minus 400,
It's minus 500 right now. So,
minus
so
500.
people, so
That was
people
my
have been
second guess.
sleep. Yeah. So people think that it's gonna be a decision fight, right? Both these ladies. I mean, I don't think there's gonna be a finish. It did open up at minus 400 though, by the way. So you're like partially correct there. Opened up at minus 400, got bet down to minus 500. So people instantly probably put that in their parlay locks. Um, I would honestly, I would consider putting that in a parlay, but I mean, minus 500 is a lot. That's a lot right there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I do think this is going to go to decision, man. I mean, I don't see another way it's going to go. I don't think either of these ladies are going to finish each other. Jennifer Maya by points right now is minus 105. Vivi by points is plus 170. So if I were to pick either one of these fighters, I'll probably just pick either one of them by points. I would pick Jennifer Maya, but as I always say, going forward, no play WMA. I'm good on this. I mean, I just don't think unless it's like a opportune opportunity, right? Like a Amanda Nunez v anyone, like just someone that you can like just lock it down, be like, hey, like, yeah, she's gonna beat this person no matter what. And ever since Amanda Nunez left, I mean, we
Unless
don't
it's
have been
Juliana Pena.
yeah, the first time, right? But like this after that one, like there was you can't fade Nunez again after that because she learned her lesson. Like she's not gonna
Mm,
lose like that anymore. It's kind of like Wei Li in the way. Zhang Wei Li, like she got head kicked by Rose, and ever since then she came back and became like a super soldier. Like she looks way different now, like in her body, her appearance. Like she's like manhandles people now. Like remember that fight against Amanda Lemos, right, where she just like dominated
mm,
Amanda the whole fight. So I mean, yeah, unless it's like
mm,
something that is a truly dominating force in WMA, probably gonna stay away. And
mm.
unless it's like a over 2.5 that I really like and there's good value on it, I'm probably gonna stay away too. I mean, minus 500, I think getting a little choppy there. But I
Yeah,
mean, I could see myself just throwing that in that parlay to be honest, even though it's minus
Maya,
500.
Maya
But
decision.
yeah, because like I just don't like I don't know where the finish is gonna come from. I mean, potentially the finish could come from maybe like a grappling exchange where Vivi is going to throw up some of those submissions like she did against Rebus, right?
Mm,
But even then, I mean, none of those submissions worked against Rebus. I don't think it's going to work against Maya either. I don't see Maya finishing Vivi because Vivi is really tough. I'll give her that. Even if she really underperformed that last fight, I mean, she didn't get finished, even though she probably should have. So yeah, I mean, I think she's super tough. All of her fights so far in the UFC, except for her first one back in 2019, have been decisions. So I mean, I think that this fight is probably going to go to decision route. So yeah, um, pick here for me is Jennifer Maya, but I'm staying away from this. Yeah, good on that. Next fight that we have on the main card, this is going to be the main event of the evening, the fight that is centered around the whole fight card. We have Super Sodiq Yusuff versus Edson Barboza. This is going to be a really fun fight. I think that even though it could look like kind of a random main event, right? That the UFC probably didn't have many other options for this. I think that it's actually pretty cool because I mean, Super Sadiq Yusuff, he hasn't fought in a long time, and it's gonna be cool to kind of see him in there because he's one of my favorite fighters to kind of watch just because of his style in a way. But anyways, Sadiq Yusuff, 13-2, 4-1 in his last five, 30 years old, 5'9", 71-inch reach, fighting against Edson Barboza, 23-11, 3-2 in his last five, coming off of that really good win against Billy Q, where he knocked him out with that knee. 37 years old, 5'11", 75-inch reach, so he is the slightly longer fighter and taller fighter here. Um, as far as the odds, just to tell you, is minus 161 right now. Sadiq Yusuff is minus 161, opened up at a minus 200. So people did take some of that dog money on Edson Barboza there. Um, I'll also kind of flip it back to you, just kind of hear your thoughts on the main event first. What do you think about this main event here before I give my thoughts?
I think Sadiq Yusuff, he's he's well rounded everywhere. I think he's solid everywhere in terms of stand up grappling, decent defense. Um, one of the fights that I was watching, Yusuff versus Arnold Allen, I think he does have a tendency to kind of be too cautious at times and start slow and be more calculated in the early rounds. Um, you see him kind of reacting kind of slow as well against Arnold Allen's striking early on, and then he seemed like he was susceptible to that head kick against Arnold Allen, which kind of wobbled him as well. But he came on pretty strong in the third round, and to me, Yusuff kind of seems like he's probably a better 5 round fighter than a 3 round. fighter, I believe. Even though in his last fight he finished a guy in 30 seconds with a guillotine, so he'll obviously have
Dodge
the
kicks.
grappling advantage over Barboza. Like, yeah, that was real quick.
That's a
Um,
can. That was a can.
yeah, as a kid,
That
as a
dude did
kid,
not look like he was
yeah.
in the UFC.
Usually Yusuff starts off kind of slow at
Yeah.
first and like be efficient, but he was like, "Oh, this is easy, easy work. This is easy work, and no respect. Just let me just get this, get this dub real quick." Uh, but yeah, he this fight he's facing a dude who's not a can. He just finished the guy with a knee, and Billy Quarantillo, who is high pace and great, great wrestling, and just puts it on you. And Edson and his team was able to read the tendencies of Billy, and you saw the outcome there. He's just finished with a clean knee that he said he's been working on throughout the entire camp, just knowing that he's going to do that. So in this fight, I see why there was dog money that went into hard onto Barbosa because they saw the same uh, vulnerabilities on Sodiq Yusuff that a pristine hicker like Edson Barbosa and striker can find find home on Yusuff's head, whether it's a knee or boxing, striking. So it's definitely possible. Is there Yusuff can be hittable if he's not all the way cautious and uh, disciplined in his defense. Um, mm, yeah, Barbosa. This is probably going to be this will be the best kicks that Sodiq Yusuff has seen in his career, probably in a fight. So yeah, it makes sense why the dog money went there. Um, Sodiq Yusuff, I do think that he should get the win. He's years away from being 37 and a 37-year-old Barbosa in a 5 round fight. I'm not sure if that's like the best recipe for at this time of his career. Yusuff, on the other hand, I think he's actually will show that he's actually a better 5 round fighter than a 3 round fighter, and he might show some of his Usman
Hmm.
minus the duck and get head kick part.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I got Sodiq Yusuff here. Uh, low confidence, but low to medium confidence here. 5 rounder, but Barbosa is live to find a find a vulnerability in terms of striking. So yeah, that's my pick.
Yeah, well said, man. For me, I'll just be really blunt. I think Sadiq Yusuf's gonna be my lock for this fight. All the and it's mainly because of the buy signals that, like I say, like I would like to say, that I see from this fight. I mean, Sadiq Yusuf, he hasn't fought since last year. I think his last fight was in last October against Don Shanis, that late notice guy that they found to just get subbed by him. So I think that a lot of people, are probably forgetting the of his run, right? Because he hasn't fought in a year. He's had some pretty good dubs in his career so far. I mean, he beat Andre Fili, beat Bruce Leroy, had a really close fight with Arnold Allen, even though he did lose the decision there. But if you just look at his record and some of the quality of opponents, I mean, it's pretty legit. I'm glad that you mentioned that aspect of, we might possibly see him incorporate a Marty Juiceman kind of game plan. I think Sadiq has some underrated grappling and underrated submission game too. Like you saw, I mean, he subbed Don Shannis pretty quick in 30 seconds. I think he was working on that. I think he's constantly improving. He's not just a stand-up fighter. I think he's going to try to prove that on Saturday. Edson Barbosa. I mean, we all know who Edson is, right? I mean, UFC vet. He's fought the best of the best at lightweight. Now he's dropped down to featherweight at 145. and he's had some good victories. Has some close losses. But mainly, I mean, the drop to 145, in my opinion, has been kind of hit or miss for him. He started off like kind of losing to Dan Ige, beat Marquand Yermekani, who not even I don't think he's in the UFC anymore, but that guy's just a one trick pony, and he only has like one round to boot. So I think that was a really easy win for him. Got a good win over Shane Burgos, but I think Shane Burgos kind of overrated, and you kind of see that because ever since Shane Burgos left the UFC, I think he got an L. So I don't think he's even UFC caliber. Then when he fought Giga Chikadze, who's fairly good striker in the 145 division, he got knocked out. He fought a guy like Bryce Mitchell, who's a really good grappler in 145, and he got UD'd. And he got outstruck by Bryce Mitchell in that fight, by the way. People are forgetting that, but I think Bryce Mitchell put him out in terms of knockdown. So just remember that too. Then when he fought Billy Q, I mean, I actually was on Edson in that fight because I mean I thought that the way Billy Q fights, right? I mean he's all pressure, all pace. He likes to pour in the volume in the later rounds, but he really kind of he weathers a lot of storms and takes a lot of damage, right? And I don't think you want to play that game plan against a guy like Edson Barboza, who is a really technical striker, really good kicks. Like if you just see a lot of his highlights, he has a lot of spinning kick highlights, flying knees. I mean, this guy is like really good kickboxer. But if you follow his career, I mean, the one surefire way to beat Edson Barboza is to grapple him. I mean, you saw what Habib Nurmagomedov did. I mean, granted that's Habib, right? But if you out grapple him, put a pace on him, he does kind of tend to wither a little bit. So I think that Sodiq is gonna start off the fight kickboxing or whatnot, but I think eventually he's gonna actually use some grappling in this fight and kind of try to show off some of his newfound skills that I think he's been keeping under wraps for about a year right now. So really interesting here, but I think Sadiq by submission at plus 450, I think that could be a decent play there because just to let you know, this fight, in terms of goes the distance, they think that it's a no at minus 250. So they think that if this fight's going to be finished within like 3.5 rounds or so, and I think that Sadiq might find the submission here or the knockout, obviously, but I think that that submission could be something that could be a good play. So
Hmm.
once again, I mean, Sadiq, good kickboxer, but I think he's going to try to pull out like a Marty Usman kind of play and use that physicality that he has. Because if you do look at his body type, look at his kind of his physical attributes, I mean, he's going to be the shorter, stockier guy here. So I think that he might use that leverage kind of advantage that he has against Edson to kind of take him down, push him against the cage, maybe do some like dirty clinching, and he won't allow Edson to kind of do those crazy flying stuffs or like spinning techniques and really kind of ground Edson in the way. So I'm looking at Sadiq kind of putting a statement right here and kind of showing the division that hey, he's here, he's in his prime, and he's ready to make a run at the next guys in the rankings after Edson Barboza. And also Edson Barboza, I mean, he's coming off of that highlight win, right? Highlight kind of knee against Billy Quarantino, and I always just kind of like to fade fighters who come off a highlight like that because that's the last thing that people remember, and people probably don't remember how good Sadiq Yusuff actually is and how much of a prime fighter he is right now. So, pick is going to be Sadiq Yusuff. I would be comfortable putting him in a parlay personally, even if he opened up at minus 200 and now he's minus 161. So people did get the dog money on Edson Barboza, but yeah, I'm going full send on Sadiq here. Um, so yeah, I mean that pretty much wraps up the breakdown of the whole card. I mean, I think we did some pretty good work here as far as some of the breakdowns. Moving
You're
on
not
to but
you're not spooked by the main event
no, not this
letdowns
time.
for the past few.
Yeah, like honestly, that Rafael Fiziev one, that was just something that was pretty crazy that happened, right? I mean, I don't
Mm,
think that who could foresee what happened there. That's pretty crazy. And then, man,
mm.
the, that Grant Dawson one, that like a 30-second knockdown. I mean, but
Yeah.
whoa, what was that? Sorry, was my dog
Yeah,
though.
that dog lost money on that.
Yeah, I know. That's how I felt last couple weeks. But yeah, man, I think that this is a gonna be a tape because like for this matchup at least, when I broke it down, I think it's more straightforward than the last two. Because in the last two, there was good, even though like Grant Dawson does have that kind of gap in the grappling department, there was that gap in the striking department, right? And we kind of saw that play out, and we didn't take that into account. Also, the experience factor as well. I mean, Bobby Green has been fighting the who's who in that division, and Grant Dawson, that was the first time he fought someone that was like a ranked caliber, right? He hasn't really fought someone like that. I mean, unless you count like Demir Ismagulov, which I don't really count him as like a really good guy in that division. So yeah, I mean, I think that this one's going to be much more straightforward. And I do like to back the younger fighter here as well. I mean, I think Edson's kind of at the end of the line here. Like, if he lost to Billy Q there, I think that he might have been like one loss away from potentially leaving the UFC. So I think because he got that win, which was might have been unexpected, but I think that UFC matching up with someone who's like in their prime, like a Sodiq Yusuff, I think that's kind of a buy signal there, in my opinion, because I think that they do have big plans for Steve Yusuff. He has a pretty good social media following. If you also follow him on social media, does pretty funny breakdowns on Twitter. They're not like
Mhm.
technical at all in terms of breakdown, but they're pretty funny sometimes. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
think this guy's personality. I think they want to push someone like him, and yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
I seen his YouTube. He has
Yeah,
some good
yeah,
stuff on his YouTube.
it's pretty
Yeah.
fun. Pretty funny
Mhm.
guy. All right, let's move on to the next portion of the breakdown, the final portion, and we'll just kind of see what kind of parlays or what kind of bets or picks that we have going on that could be good plays right now. I'll start off with you. I mean, right now, obviously, this is pre face off, pre weigh in, right? So we'll have a little more information on Friday once it happens. But do you have any kind of plays that you have or parlays that you have in mind that could be a good one?
So one that I like is
Oh,
man,
sorry, hold on.
the dog wants to throw in his parlays too. Uh let's see. I like obviously my lock is TJ Brown, and I I think I'll do TJ Brown with two leg parlays with a hedge with Edgar Chairez, and then another one with TJ Brown and Daniel Lacerda. Uh, just because I think the juice is worth the squeeze on Lacerda possibly getting an upset there, and then maybe another one on Sodiq Yusuff, and
Did I convince you for CDs? You gonna put them in a parlay now?
maybe,
Good
and then I
stuff.
might do the same thing with Sadiq Edgar Chairez, and then Sadiq Daniel Lacerda,
Okay.
and then maybe a three legger possibly with Sadiq Yusuff, TJ Brown, and uh, some hedge play with Edgar Chairez and Lacerda for three leggers there. So keeping it simple, not going too crazy on this card. Yeah, I think those are my main parlays.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, for me, from my end at least, right now, I'll probably have like one parlay that I'm thinking of before the weigh-ins, and then maybe after I could think of another one. But right now, it's going to be Sadiq Yusuff at minus 161. That'll be my first leg. I'm going with Edgar Chairez again at minus 340. He's going to be my second leg there. And then another leg that I'm going to have as far as the parlay is going to be that Emily Ducote and Ashley Yoder at minus 350 over 2.5. I think that's going to be my third leg. And if you kind of put all three of those legs together, it is a plus 170 right now. So not too bad. I think that could be a good 1 or 2 unit kind of action there that you could put and kind of secure a safe win You could get a little bit more fancy with it if you want to add another leg. Potentially a guy like Chris Gutierrez, or maybe even the over in that fight, right? The over 2.5 is minus 270, which I actually kind of like as a
Mm.
potential parlay piece. Obviously, Terrence McKinney, I mean, minus 225, minus 525, even though I do think he's going to steamroll him and it could be a possible parlay piece. I'm going to have to wait until weigh-ins just kind of see how he looks because minus 525 on a guy that, you know, sus in a way. I don't know if I want to trust that. Same thing goes with TJ Brown. I mean, I think he's obviously the better fighter, but I don't know if I can trust him in a parlay quite
Mm.
yet from my end. Yeah, so I think really my plays right now is just to recap: Sodiq Yusuff, Edgar Chairez, over 2.5 on Emily Ducote, potentially Chris Gutierrez, or the over 2.5 on his fight at minus 270. So those are probably my plays right now. But I think this is a fight card that it's going to be better to kind of see the weigh-ins because in the
Mm.
weigh-ins we're going to see, for example, like Michel Pereira, right? Let's see how he looks at 185. See how he kind of stacks up to Andre Petoski. Maybe there's a play there if he looks good. So yeah, I mean those are my plays right now, but just super excited to see what the weigh-ins and face-offs look like. I mean I think Friday's going to be pretty telling, and we'll hopefully get some more plays in there after that. But that's going to be pretty much it for now. You have any final thoughts on the card before we wrap up and head out?
Um, if I were to do my previously before the tricks, it would have been and I wasn't scared of women's MMA. It would have been this is what it would have been. It would have been Sadiq Youssef, Jennifer Maya,
Yeah.
TJ Brown, and Ducate. But the way has how UFC has been going
Uh-huh.
is hard to pick these women locks. So yeah, hopefully it's all treats, no tricks this time.
Man, when is Halloween? I feel like a little early for these picks, bro. What's happening, man? Like it's a lot of tricks so far. But yeah, all
Yeah.
right. Cool. Well, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up for this week's edition of breakdowns. We're gonna have Alex come in the best bets maybe on Thursday or Friday. But yeah, other than that, hope everyone has a great time watching the fight card, and best of luck to everyone. Please like, comment, subscribe for our peer picks. Really would love that. We'll respond to every comment, see every like, and yeah, let's really get the ball rolling and get some more kind of exposure on the channel, if you will. So if you like it, feel free to give a like, comment, subscribe. Help us out in terms of the exposure and the algorithm. So yeah, for me, James, I'm out. Gerard, Top G, I'll see you later, and yeah, best of luck to everyone. Okay.